Star Trek, the ultimate franchise. These are the voyages of 3 veteran Trekkies, Rich, Ian, and Toby. Their ongoing mission? To explore the vast Star Trek universe, to seek out new perspectives and fresh debates, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. Beyond the Final Frontier.
Welcome to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast. I'm your host, Rich Matthews, and I'm here as ever with my fellow Trekkie veterans, Mr. Ian Spelling.
Hello.
And Mr. Toby Weidman.
Hello.
So after last episode's discussion of the Borg, today we're getting a bit more granular again, and specifically to discuss an area very close to my heart. And if I'm honest, one of the reasons I was first drawn to Star Trek, which is we're going to talk about our favourite starships. Of all ilks, of all races, of all species within Star Trek across all the eras. And we're very lucky today that we get to share that conversation with Starship royalty. So Ian, if you'd like to introduce our special guest.
Sure. We've got John Eaves with us. John, how you doing?
I'm very good. How are you guys?
Good. Real fast. John, of course, is designer and illustrator, is his profession, and he's been doing it for how many years?
40th anniversary was last month, actually, so.
Wow. 40th anniversary. And on Star Trek, he has worked in coordination with Doug Drexler, with the Okudas, with you name it, Herman Zimmerman, everybody we know from the show. John has been there with them, for them, and he's done incredible work on Deep Space Nine, Enterprise, Discovery, Picard, a lot of the Star Trek films, including, I think, all of the TNG films, as well as all 3 of the JJ verse films. And you did some work. I don't think it made it onto the screen ultimately for Prodigy, correct?
Yes, we were doing the preliminary kind of design work for that, for the ship, so.
We are talking a very long time of 40 years. You're looking at 30-something of them with Star Trek, which is just absolutely remarkable.
That'd be 30, good grief, how much is that? 37 years.
Almost 40. But it's a pleasure to have you with us. We're thrilled and honored, and we are going to pick your brain and warp you into our debates and arguments about some of our favorite ships, in addition to chatting with you about your career, your books that you've done, and what you're working on now.
Okay, very good.
First question is, what's your first memory of Star Trek?
Well, it's funny, when it came on, when it actually aired, I was 4 or 5 years old, so I was too young. I remember it was on the background. My dad liked Westerns, so it was either Rifleman or Gunsmoke, so Star Trek wasn't a part of the venue. But when they started going into syndication, it was on right after school. And I walked in, I didn't know what it was. I walked in and the first episode was Doomsday Machine. And I walked in, I go, what is this amazing thing? I was just stuck to the screen watching this show. I was an instant fan immediately. And the next day they played Tomorrow's Yesterday. And after that, they played the episode of Gary 7. I was just hooked like a maniac to this show. And I was at the age where going inside to watch TV on a after-school play day was nothing in my thinking. But Star Trek dragged me in, and those 3 shows were amazing. And of course, the music was so bombastic and fantastic in the 60s iteration of the shows that, it was its own character. And I remember that Doomsday Machine and the great theme when they're chasing the F-104 is chasing the Enterprise and Tomorrow's Yesterday. Those themes stuck. And I'm so glad that thanks to time, we got these CD sets of all that music, and you go back, you just hear it, you know exactly what scenes are going on. But that was my introduction to Star Trek was when it was on TV.
That's awesome. So then what was the first thing on Star Trek you worked on?
The first thing I worked on, the first thing I did was I had met Greg Jean, who was the greatest model maker in the world at the time. He had done Close Encounters of the Third Kind in 1941, Star Trek the motion picture, and I was an enormous fan of his. I read about him in Starlog when I started getting those. He had done Dark Star, the John Carpenter sci-fi build, and he built a Ron Cobb ship, basically. And I was a fan of both of theirs from Starlog, actually. And Greg came to Apogee where I was working, and we were working on this crazy game called Tunnel Hunt, kind of an upgraded video game. And when he was getting ready to go, he said, I'm getting ready to go work on Star Trek V. Would you like to go? So he took me with him. So we went over and we started building the models, and it was an interesting Star Trek because it was the first one that ILM wasn't a part of.
Yeah, Brand Farron, wasn't it? Was the supervisor, I think?
Yeah, Brand Farron out of Hoboken, New Jersey got the project. And so we'd build...
The home of special effects, Hoboken, New
Yes,
Jersey.
exactly. And so he was in Hoboken, New
Just for the
Jersey.
record, my son was conceived in Hoboken.
TMI.
Go on. Just saying.
The world goes in crazy circles. But so we had to build the models in Marina Del Rey at his shop and ship them up to Hoboken, New Jersey. And so that was my introduction to it. And it was interesting because this one model we worked on, I absolutely hated to this day because I was very new at model making, but we had to make the shuttle bay for the shuttles to crash into. And Herman Zimmerman had designed the set, the interior to fit the stage. And basically the math didn't work putting it in the miniature. And so to make that work, the back of the shuttle bay is elongated. It's not wide like it should be. And Greg goes, well, it will work. They'll angle it over here. The camera will be cool, stuff like that. And they didn't do it. And I don't know. It looks like it's a widescreen movie put in pan and scan on TV. And it was a beautiful model, but it was just the proportions were just horribly off. And every time we do a Star Trek movie after that, they'd dig everything out of Cantera and storage to bring it over to pick through if they wanted anything. That big monster was always there, and they wouldn't let me go burn it, how much I wanted to do. But that was it. So we did the shuttles. We did all the props, the phaser guns. Greg was involved with absolutely everything on it. So it was fun. And Greg's a practical joker to the upteenth amount. And so when we'd ship these models, for some reason, whenever we'd do something toxic, like fiberglass or whatever, it'd be late in the evening because they'd do it when all the businesses would go home so we wouldn't kill everybody. But after these toxic nights, he liked to get Louisiana hot sausage sandwiches, which was just poison on top of poison. And whatever was left, it'd hide it in the models and then ship them to New Jersey. So they'd get like models full of chili cups and hot sausage. I don't know what it was, but they didn't appreciate it, but that was Greg's sense of humor. So whatever was left over survived to travel in a hot truck to New Jersey and only to be rediscovered.
My question for you, John, is how did you initially get into design and illustration? I mean, were you a fan of like science fiction artwork? I know you're a big fan of like US Air Force planes and jet fighters and that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, huge fan of sci-fi, and again with Starlog coming out, you learn about all the movie illustrators like Ralph Quarry and Joe Johnson and Nilo, and all of these amazing artists. I was a huge fan of Robert McCall. I grew up in Phoenix, and Robert McCall was a Phoenix native, and he was in the phone book. I actually called him as a kid, and he invited me to his house to show me his artwork and stuff. But he did Arizona. We had a magazine called Arizona Highways. It's basically touring Arizona, and they take pictures, but every once in a while they do a Robert McCall special. And he had turned Phoenix into a futuristic solar city where the Grand Canyon is all solar panels and these wonderful airships and stuff. And that was my introduction to sci-fi art, basically, was through Robert McCall. And from there, he got onto the motion picture, and we became actually very, very good friends before he had passed away. But he was my introduction. I had met Ron Cobb and Sid Mead, and when movies were just so fantastic from the late 70s, early 80s. You had Blade Runner, you had all these amazing artists. And then the art of books started to come out. Thanks to Star Wars, they started that art of movie books. And the sketchbooks by Joe Johnson and stuff. Just amazing stuff. So I was a sci-fi fan. And Greg had me draw things for him in his shop. To get back to your question. But he'd have me draw things, like the instructions for how the phasers would go together. Or this or that, the other thing. And Herman Zimmerman saw that, and Mike Akuta saw those, and they'd send notes over, hey, could you sketch this or sketch that? And Mike had me sketch a shuttle for them for Star Trek V, and it wound up getting delivered to him too late. But that's kind of how I got into the art of it, and Herman remembered that. And when Generations came along, he called me up, and he goes, you still drawing or making models? And I go, I'm doing both, but I just pretty much more illustrate than model make. He brought me in for that.
Was that your thing as a kid? Were you someone who was always like, drawing and sketching and or model making? I just wonder where that initial impetus came from.
Exactly. I was a huge model making fan. My dad made model cars, and I like the airplanes and rockets, and
you like Greeblies, essentially, from the sounds of it.
Yeah. Well, it was the shift then, because everything was turning rockets because of the Mercury and Gemini and Apollo stuff. So everything in the model world shifted from cars to rockets and stuff. And then, of course, Star Trek model kits were like the thing to get. And I think the Klingon was the first one I bought, and saved my allowance, and then the Enterprise, of course.
Oh,
but always loved that stuff. Huge fan of it. And for some reason, we didn't have Twilight Zone in Phoenix. We had Outer Limits and some of the other shows, but we didn't have Twilight Zone. So I was a huge Outer Limits fan. I didn't get Twilight Zone till much, much later when cable came out.
Did Rod Serling not cope well in the desert heat?
Maybe so. But
well, that's awesome. So, as we're going to go through our ranking now, our top 7 favourite ships, and mine is a good way in because it's a quite interesting, unusual one. It's a new ship, relatively new ship. Also, we'll go through. Normally, I start, then Ian will follow, and then Toby. And we're happy for you to chip in if you have a particular one, or if you want to just listen and comment on ours. That's equally cool. But my number 7 is the Enterprise G, or the Titan A, the Constitution 3 class from Picard, which, unlike a lot of these, there's lots of names involved with this one, isn't there? I mean, John, you were one of the people, but it was knit by a fan, designed by Bill Krause. It was based on, and then Doug Drexler worked on it with you, and even Terry Matalas, I believe. Is that right?
Right. What happened was Bill Krause was a fabulous model maker, and his passion is starships. And there's a show called Wonderfest in Kentucky. It's a model making convention. And probably 10 years earlier, Bill Krause had entered this starship that he had designed, and he had brass pieces, all this amazing stuff. Most beautiful kit bashing starship I ever saw, and I actually got to judge it. And as we were doing other Star Trek movies, I'd go, hey, there's this guy named Bill Krause, maybe we could get some of his models for desktop models or something. And it never came to be, but when we were doing Picard, I brought up his name again. And Dave Blass goes, ironically, Terry Matalas is a huge fan of Bill's, and he buys his models. And he likes 2 of the ships, so that eventually became the Titan and then the Enterprise G. And what we did is what we were doing with the Stargazer, the nacelle design. We needed to carry that architecture. So the nacelles from the Stargazer were the ones they put on his Titan and Enterprise G. And Doug did helped with the 3D modeling of it. And so kind of all of us collaborated to make Bill's ship a kind of a ship that was kind of visibly VFX worthy for the show. And so that's why we all worked on it. But it's basically Bill Krause's complete design.
Well, it was really cool though, because you were watching it going, that's the Titan. That looks awfully Enterprise-like.
Yes.
You're going, if that doesn't become the Enterprise.
Well, being that he's a fan of the show, a lot of designs for starships that we do that get rejected will have interesting things on them, and they're just sometimes too far out. But Bill has that same kind of sense of design, and so in his fan ships, we see a lot of stuff that he did that obviously gets approved because it's he's doing it on his own. But in the actual approval process at Paramount and CBS, they were designs that got skipped, like the dual tie lines from the saucer to the hull. He did one of those ships that had that. And I go, wow, we did that with Discovery, but it got rejected. And we did it with the Excelsior, and it didn't make it. So it's fun to see that his design sense is basically exactly what, like, the production designer would hire somebody for. So he's got that sense of design. And talk about a Cinderella story. What an amazing feat from being a huge Star Trek fan to actually working on the show.
I wish I could afford one of his models. But no, there we are. One day. So next up, Ian. If you want to, now Ian previously has declared himself not the biggest Starship guy, which is interesting. It's a
I don't know the minutia of the ships.
Yeah.
I know the nacelle is out of place here. I couldn't give a shit.
Yeah, like on the Enterprise G, their little cutouts in the saucer section, for instance.
Right. But for example, one of my favorite ships, and this will be my number 7, is the Bird of Prey from Star Trek 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Part of it is it's just this green turtle-like ship when it's in the water in the bay, right?
Yeah.
And it's just really cool visual. And the other thing that sticks out is I watched them shoot the scene in the tank at Paramount. I just think it's a brilliant looking ship. It's effective on the outside, obviously, and then the inside, it was so cramped and weird, and thought it was a really cool, effective, colorful, visually interesting, plot-moving ship within the context of Star Trek. So, my number 7.
Yeah, you aren't kidding. And boy, when it premiered in 3, when it came uncloaked with that massive toner score on top of it, like you couldn't have asked for anything better. And what an amazing design. Nilo had done that. I think along with Bill George and Greg Jean, I think all 3 had their hands in that.
Did you work on the model for 5 at all?
We did. We used the actual miniature from ILM, but we did a close-up of the wing and the kind of funky stop motion gun.
Shooting the satellite.
Yeah. So the stop motion was not very smooth, but we had to build that wing in giant size, so it was really pretty fun. Cool. And that was actually my first Star Trek drawing, is I had to draw that gun and get it approved so we could build a model for it. So we had the little teeny tiny model kit, and it was really, really tiny, so trying to figure out what it looked like. And back then you'd try to freeze frame the VHS and you'd get that line through the middle. So research was really difficult to get information.
Like VHS judder.
Yeah, the wiggle right in the middle where you want to watch it.
So Toby, what about you?
The USS Voyager, Intrepid class. I tend to like the sleeker Starship models, not in every case, but particularly if you watch the title sequence, the way it just cuts through space, and it's just a very beautiful looking ship. I liked how the saucer section was, pretty different for the time. I think there had been sort of examples where they kind of done it, but that kind of egg shape. Losing the neck of the Enterprise, or the Constitution
the
class.
Secondary hull.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I liked that the nacelles could go up and down. I thought that was an interesting thing. Again, something that we hadn't seen before. I guess you could say the Bird of Prey had the wings that went there. Sort of something similar.
Opposite way.
And interestingly, I think a model was made of this, but it was mostly CG. And this is, spoiler alert, this is probably the only ship in my list that they used mostly CG for. All the others were kind of models. But
that was right on the cuff of moving from miniatures to CG. So they did a little bit of miniature in the beginning and then moved over to the CG. So it was a little crossover of both.
The only reason I know that there was a model is that when I was doing some research, I looked up and the model was sold at auction for something like $130,000.
My 7th was the Romulan ship from the original TV series.
John, I have a question for you. I want to jump in since we literally just hit this. Where do you fall on the practical model versus CG question? I mean, to this day, there are things that I still love about models that CG just can't do for me in terms of depth of the visuals. Even just the Enterprise and the opening credits of the original series, to me, still looks more real than some of the stuff I see on current shows, Star Trek and otherwise, by the way. There's something about a model being shot in the field, right? With a background that just looks real. It's kind of like miniatures in Godzilla. Yeah. If it works, it works.
I've always, because I grew up watching miniatures and worked in miniatures, I'll always be a hardcore fan of them because there's a weight that you get with a practical model. You get the motion with the motion control. It was a magic world watching motion control work, and you could put a shoebox up there, and if you had the right guy lighting it, that was where the magic came from. And of course, designing the move like Doug Smith over at Apogee, he's like one of the king at setting up a shot. He's the one that designed the shot in the motion picture with the Klingon in the beginning, with the big camera that spins across the top and makes you sick in the theater from the motion. He and Doug Trumbull kind of competed on that. So Doug did that great shot with the Klingon, and Trumbull goes, I'm going to top that. And that's what you get the Enterprise at the end, where it does that beautiful flyover before it goes to war. So there's this little competition going on between motion control teams. But something about a miniature, the way you light it, in the computer is so mathematical. It's almost too perfect sometimes, but you don't get the weight that you see with motion control. So I'm always a miniature motion control fan. CG's cool, but...
And just following that up really quickly, how interesting is it to see it go the other way back when Eagle Moss was doing the ships, for example, to see something that was actually rendered in CG become a physical model?
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's really cool. Because like with Enterprise, everything was CG when we did TV show Enterprise. So there was no practical anything on that show. So it was great when the model kits started coming out. I think it was Round 2 that put out the NX-01. Whoever did the great big kit, I think it was Round 2. But and then all those Eagle Moss ships, it was great to actually physically hold that in your hand. Go, wow, and then you can look at it and flip it around and see everything. So
I have a related CGI question, actually, because one of the things that sort of I'm curious about is the hulls of the ships are getting more metallic and grayer, whereas if you look at the original series, the movie Enterprise, it's very much that sort of porcelain, pearlescent look with all the Aztecing and things like that. Was that a conscious choice that's been happening over time, that they've got grayer?
Well, that paint job that Ron Gress was the guy that Mark Stetson hired to paint the refit Enterprise. And he was a master he actually designed his own airbrush at one time called the Chameleon. But he was trying to figure out, he's working very close with back in those days, you'd work very close with the director Froggery and the cameraman and all that stuff. So you could see things. You'd look at stuff that had been filmed previously and go, let's try something they don't want to do panels because they wanted the Enterprise smooth. And so his job came in, what can we do that gives it layers without panels? And panels are designed later to use scale like the Enterprise D. But he came up with that different variations of matte versus satin versus gloss paints to make that paneling work. Having the lighting guy again sold that story. So when you see the light going over it in the space dock and stuff, and seeing that different changes of color and light, it was pearlescence, it was some pinks, some purples. It was amazing what that guy had done. I think at that time, it was like $120,000 paint job, just because of the amount of time it took. But gosh, it was gorgeous. And then after that, you try and reinvent that. But the budget and time never allowed to make another refit kind of paint job on any other ship. So you get more of the two tones, but you'd never be able to afford the refit in the Star Trek movie back in the day.
And having attempted to do an Aztecing paint job on an Enterprise, it's not easy.
No, the matching is so hard. It takes forever.
So number 6. My number 6 is the Klingon Bird of Prey, Burrell class. We've discussed it. I think for a while I went back and forth on that and the Warbird from the motion picture. But the truth is when someone says a Klingon starship, it's the Bird of Prey that pops into mind. And I think its use in DS9, especially the numbers of them, when you finally saw a fleet of them all sort of maneuvering together like actual birds, it was like, oh, and that green pops. And again, he's talking about that the paint job for differentiation, having the patterns, but they're not overbearing on the wings and things like that. It's just an incredibly vibrant and exciting. And it's also the best photon launcher for me. On the front. I love like a man.
And and then having a theme accompanied it always makes it even better. So that Honer, God, what a great piece of music. Keep designing for that, based on the Goldsmith, that kind of Native American drum beats and stuff thrown on top of that with those funky instruments and stuff. Boy, you couldn't have asked for two better composers to combine those themes together. So great stuff.
Actually, just very quickly then, because you've mentioned you've paired your models with your ships with music quite a few times. If you're designing or building one, do you have music in your mind about what will play over it when you see it?
Well, it's funny. As growing up, I always thought, wouldn't it be cool to make something that has a theme attached to it? And I was always a big Jerry Goldsmith fan. And when we were doing First Contact, we saw the orchestra where our office was. We could look down and see the orchestra walking, and we rolled down the window. Hey, who are you scoring with today? Oh, Jerry Goldsmith. We're doing First Contact. So we got the directory out. Remember those little white directories, Ian, that we used to have over there, the little folder book? And you flipped it open. We found the recording stage. A gal named Stephanie ran it. So we called her and go, we're over in the art department. Could we come over and watch some of the recordings? She goes, oh, come on over. So we went over there and we walk in and she goes, sit in these chairs. They're below the sound box. And I talked Doug Drexler to go with me. He was very scared to go because he didn't want to leave the office for too long. And we got trapped in there because all the producers came in, they sat behind us and there was no way to sneak out. So we're sitting down there and Jerry Goldsmith saw us and he comes and goes, hey, who are you guys? I go, oh, we're in the art department. He goes, come out and meet the orchestra.
Wow.
So Doug and I went out and met the orchestra and Alexander Courage is standing next to him.
Oh,
and he goes,
wow.
This is Sandy. I mean, Alexander. He called his nickname was Sandy. And I was like, oh my gosh. And they both signed us some things. It was really cool. But he was doing the music to the Vulcan lander for the end of the movie. And that was the most magical moment I think I ever lived in Star Trek, to watch some little drawing I did turn into an ILM model to have a piece of Jerry Goldsmith music over it. The most incredible moment of 40 years working in Hollywood was that minute and a half sitting in that recording studio. So, but yeah, there's always music attached. Usually it's Susie and the Banshees, but of all things.
So, Ian, you're number 6.
I gotta go with the Excelsior.
Which one?
Captain Sulu's.
Captain Sulu's.
I mean, it's a gorgeous, elegant ship, befitting and powerful ship, befitting the right captain in the right moment, introduced so incredibly in the movie, right? Just a beautiful ship to look at. The interior set stuff was cool as well. I just remember seeing that on the screen in the movie theater when I saw it, going, wow, that's an impressive looking ship.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it was designed in 3 to have implications of being ugly.
I never thought that. When it made its premiere in that space dock, I was like, well, Star Trek 3 was like a feast for those that like ships. Because you had the little merchant ship, you had the bird of prey. My all-time favorite was, well, I'll save it till we get there. But
Okay.
They're all in Star Trek 3, ironically. So, but he's right, that Excelsior was such a gorgeous ship. And when it got to 6 with Sulu commanding it with the wave, and it was just an amazing moment in Star
I think
Trek.
the difference was just how they shot it, as you said before. So in 6, it was a hero ship.
Yeah.
It wasn't in 3. It was sort of it was designed to break down and be clunky and be slightly mocked.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you give it a full thing and it's flying again, you've got the wave coming from the explosion of Praxis. It's just, I agree.
Right.
Gorgeous work.
And honestly, that would be higher on my list. There are just so many other good ships.
Yeah, this is an embarrassment of riches, let's be honest.
Yes, this is not knocking that at all.
Toes.
My number 6 is the Miranda class, USS Reliant, probably most famous. Although I think it featured in so many series. It's definitely in TNG and DS9.
Paul definitely blew up a Miranda class at some point.
It was the first Starfleet starship that wasn't the Constitution, and I know they did it deliberately so that when they eventually battled, you'd be able to tell them apart. But it was such an exciting design when I first saw it, and when I realised that they were going to fight, I was on the edge of my seat. I just couldn't wait for it. I just think visually it's really interesting. It's like taking the bits of the Constitution and moving things around a little bit. It does get rid of the secretary hull, but
Wasn't it an error? Wasn't it meant to be the other way up or something, and there was a mistake?
I think it was initially presented that way, and then they decided they did want to put the nacelles down rather than up. Designed by Joe Jennings and Mike Miner, I think. John, you drew the Reliant. If I did my research right, you did an illustration for it that was used in something, but you.
Oh, we did a pop-up book, so I got to draw the Reliant
Right.
in that. But and 6 is V'ger.
The whole V'ger.
Well, in the movie, you don't realize it till the little Eagle Moss ship came out. And you go, oh my gosh, what a wickedly cool ship. So,
Given you worked on Sequest, there's a little bit of V'ger in the Sequest, isn't there?
Oh, there's so much feature in Sequest. It was fun. Yeah. And so I never thought I'd be in the art department at Star Trek. So I just infiltrated Star Trek into Sequest. So
It helped the show,
It did.
and the show needed it.
Oh,
well, Sequest was very fun because it was going to be this amazing show, and Steven was behind it majorly, and we were getting hired on. We're getting all the stuff going together. That was my first kind of official illustrating job. And it came up scheduling that Steven was going to do Schindler's List. And so he wound up having to depart from the show. And so what he wanted to do with it, at that point he didn't care anymore. It's like, I'm going to Schindler's List. So you guys have fun, take over. And that's where it was. But it was great because we had Ballard there doing the little clips at the end, which were a lot of fun. And one of them, he's standing in some warehouse somewhere, and a deep sea probe had NCC 1701 on it in the background, which I thought was the coolest thing. So, but yeah, good times.
and also the cetacean navigation systems sort of came into Star Trek later. They had
Just a
that
little.
on Sequest, just a little.
Yeah, but everyone on Sequest was a Star Trek fan, so it carried across the board from props to graphics to everything else. So good times.
Cool, great. So my number 5 is an unusual one on my list in that I really didn't like this ship when it debuted, but it's a case of its use and what it came to represent in the show really elevated it. And by the time the Deep Space Nine finished, the Defiant was just a slam dunk of a ship, and I just loved its muscular sort of roar. It feels very automotive. It feels like it could have rolled out of Detroit at some point. And even though it was mostly CGI, right? Was there a model? I'm not sure there ever was a model.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah. It's also great that it's got such a presence given its size, as we discovered later in First Contact, quite how small it is. But it's just a brilliant thing. And now it's one of those moments when you see the ship where the show is so imprinted on it that it just represents everything that show, the excellence and the sort of pushing of the boundaries and the changing aesthetics that it embraced. That it's a terrific. It's like a Ferrari. It's just,
It's a tough little ship, isn't it?
yeah, ablative armor and all that jazz.
Yeah, and that was Jim Martin's breakout ship. And so he started on Deep Space Nine as the PA and moved quickly into backup illustrator, and then they gave him the Defiant. So what a great first major ship to do. So immaculate artist. I love that guy's work.
Awesome. Ian.
I'm going with the Voyager. Trep class Voyager. It's a thing of beauty. I love the sleekness of it. I love the what was your term, egg kind of shape
Yeah.
to it. Again, my expertise with models is limited, so to me it's an aesthetic thing what I'm talking about when I appreciate a ship. And I remember being sent the toy model for it with the sounds and the lights and all of that when who made those back in the day?
Oh, they were great
Was it
though. And
Playmates?
now you have to pay like $500 at a con to get one.
Was it? I think was it Playmate? Was it Playmates?
Yeah, I think it was Playmate.
It was, I remember having that ship and just thinking how gorgeous that was. And I will add one other thought to that, which was it was also one of the first hero ships from the shows that I thought could actually fly. Just in my own little headspace. I was like, because I remember as a kid with the original ship, there was a model rockets. I used to be into model rockets. You shoved a little engine up its butt and you took a fuse and then you ran like hell because you didn't want the rocket to explode in your face, right? They had an Enterprise model that had the nacelles on the side, and
It went in the secondary hull, like in the oh,
yeah,
okay.
and the thing couldn't fly.
I was going to say it was
Right, and I remember debates when I was a teenager with people like, well, the Enterprise could never fly. It would just go in circles and flippity-flap. And
you try and hang a model of it.
Right. Right. Try to balance the model. So I always appreciated, I remember the minute I got that box, oddly enough, I had just moved into Manhattan and the box arrived at my apartment in the city with the Voyager ship. And I was like, wow, this thing is gorgeous. And I had that for years on a shelf in my office, and I worked from home. So I was looking at it constantly for years. I just always loved the Voyager. Just thought it could fly. And I always thought that gave it a little added sense of realism within the science fiction context that I always appreciated.
It's a goodie.
So my number 5, and maybe we can go back to your number 7, John. The Romulan bird of prey, B-type, as it was known. It's the next gen one, basically. And I know that was, initially inspired by the TOS Romulan warbird, particularly taking the bird design from the wings and then seeing how they could try and manipulate it. And ultimately, they sort of did an oval. When that first appears in TNG, in the neutral zone, it's mind-blowing. I just love the model. I like the way that it's got a kind of beak at the front, and these just edge out the Valdor type, which I know you worked on, John, for Nemesis, which is a great iteration of this one. But it's just, I think it's an emotional thing. It's just that impact of seeing it and how it's used, and when it's used in DS9, when they all join up and that kind of thing. I was very close also to including the Scimitar with the foldable wings, because I really like that ship, and I wanted to get a Romulan ship in it.
Can I tease one thing about the Scimitar, though? I was on set when they shot the scene where Tom Hardy walks down the steps. It was like watching a Busby Berkeley movie be filmed. He was in this mother of pearl outfit, and he comes down these beautiful steps, and I was just like, that was a Herman Zimmerman design, correct?
Yeah.
And my mind was blown, but it just felt like I was watching the Roman Empire versus what was going on in Star Trek. It was really funny.
Yeah.
Crazy huge set. One of the biggest sets I ever saw was the Scimitar interior.
It was unbelievable. And that stairwell was cool because Herman put a challenge on it. He goes, let's make an hourglass stairwell that reverses on itself. That was his tease words. I forgot who designed it, but it basically is the inside of an hourglass, the outside of an hourglass, the way the steps worked. And you seeing in person.
Oh, that's interesting.
Was so vastly different than what you see on film, the way that worked. But amazing stuff. But yeah, he did with that outfit, and he's walking down those stairs. It definitely had, the lighting was 100% Busby Berkeley. So it was great.
How did you go about sort of reimagining it for the Valdor?
For the Valdor, well, we had this interesting kind of clash of architecture that we had to do. We had the Raymans, we had the Romulans, and the Klingon in sense. And if I always try to get the story right, you guys could probably correct me. But if I'm not mistaken, the original Bird of Prey was supposed to be Romulan in 3, and I had heard the story that they didn't have money for costumes, but they did for Klingons. So they made it.
They repurposed the motion picture uniforms they made, didn't they, for 3?
Right. So based on that, I thought, well, since that architecture lives in that kind of world that I think is the way it works, I tried to kind of veer off what Andy had done, what Nilo had done, and tie them all together. And with the I forgot the gentleman's name that wrote that story, Jonathan
Logan?
Jonathan Logan. He had kind of mentioned that it was a sweeping bird. And so we took it into that great big kind of carrion kind of bird. And growing up in Arizona, we had these great big desert buzzards that would just circle over the highway waiting for something to get. And you'd watch these things, they have that kind of pattern. And their feathers. And I thought, well, I'm going to use that as the basis, but I'll add in what the Klingons had done with the previous architecture and the Romulan stuff. And so it's a collaboration of all of that together, along with what Mr. Logan had written. And so that was kind of a quick ship, too. We drew a couple variations of it, and Rick Berman liked it immediately. He goes, that's what I like. Let's go with that one. So we had an art department where many of us were trying to get these ideas across and would pitch drawings any time of the day from any one of me or David Negron or the guys over Digital Domain. It just depended on what struck the fancy of Mr. Berman and Mr. Braga. So that's how it worked. So
cool. So what's your number 5, John?
The Grissom is my number 5. USS Grissom.
Oh, cool.
And what's interesting about the Grissom, you know how beautiful it is in Star Trek 3. Ship you've never seen that kind of layout before. And I just enamored with that ship, and it blew up really good too. But when
it's a nice explosion, very blue, wasn't it?
It blew up really good. And but when Greg and I were doing Red October, we had to take the submarine models from Boss Films up to Lucasfilm. And we took them up there. We got a tour of the archives. And the Grissom's sitting there. And I'm looking at it from the top. And I go, what is this ship? And they go, that's the Grissom. And I go, that doesn't look anything like the Grissom. And they go, that's because they never filmed repair. You have to get down and look through that opening between the saucer and the hull. And so I'd never seen the top of it before. And I liked it even more after that. But not seeing the top, you had no idea what you were looking at. Because it's a big, gigantic, flat surface with that little saucer on the front. But Grissom always loved that ship. So
It's a lovely ship, though, the Grissom. What class is it? Does anyone know?
Oberth, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, Oberth, you are correct.
Cool, brilliant. Right, so then that brings us to number 4, and is my first Enterprise. It was hard for me not to have 7 Enterprises, if I'm honest. My first Enterprise on this list is the Enterprise D, the Galaxy class of the next generation, which had a tough gig in the fact that it was the first new Enterprise. I know you had the refit, but for me, the refit was the one I came into because I came on with the movies, really. And even more than the crew, for me, that ship working was essential for the next generation to fly, the pun. And one thing I think is, you were saying about the lighting, John, and how that's important. That ship looked better and better as Next Gen went on. And there's a key point in season 3 where they sort of started lighting it differently. They do different things, like it would be inside of an asteroid and the lights. And so the main beauty pass essentially was not used, and you had the light pass, and it was glowing in the dark. And they got whether it's more money or whatever it was, or the computers helped. I know they shifted to that. They filmed it on like video, didn't they? It just got sexier and sexier and sexier. And it was just, by the end, it was absolutely the Enterprise. So much so that, of course, in Picard season 3, while like a cynical journalist, I was slightly try to be, not respond to fan service or nostalgia if I can. When that ship, when you're going into the museum and they start to open up and you realise it was just full. Whoa, it's the Enterprise D, and that's for me. We're talking about CGI. That's one of the great CGI uses, because when you see it emerge and it turns to warp, that CGI is spot on. It looks really gorgeous, and it has that sense of size that the Galaxy class, it's so massive, has to have. So yeah, it's my number 4.
Good choice.
My number 4, I think, will be near and dear to your heart, John. It's the Shrike.
Ah, okay.
I love the Shrike. Visually, the most striking ship. It looks evil. It's the ship that Vadic would be flying. I just thought you nailed that. And it was filmed beautifully. It's sleek. It's powerful. The look supported and complemented what its effect was within the show, if that makes any sense, right? It conveyed what it was supposed to, the sense of menace. And, you see that ship coming at you, you run, right? You don't try to fight back necessarily. So I just thought it looked great. The interior stuff worked as well, but just the wide shots of the ship, I thought were fabulous and looked great.
And the visual effects guy that composed those shots did so beautiful, always having it coming out of haze or fog. It almost always had a new entrance every time it came out. And then you had that big kind of Goldsmith-esque wah sound then when it would come out. It was really fun to watch that on the screen. And what's fun about these things is I got to work with Drexler on that directly. And so I did the sketches, and Doug would do the model and would go back and forth. So that's always a treat to work with the guy doing the 3D model. So it was great fun.
Now, how much of a Battlestar Galactica influence was there on the Shrike?
I had never seen that Battlestar Galactica, the new one. I knew what the ship looked like. Someone sent me a drawing, goes, this kind of is reminiscent of their Cylon ship. And I go, I'm not familiar with that, but we had already got the sketches out. And I go, okay, there's a lot of similarities with it. It wasn't intentional, but it does. It shares a lot of things. And Eric Chu was the designer of that. We're good friends. And so he wrote a note over and goes, "Yay, that looks like my ship. Thanks." But there's only
Did you tell him we did it better? Yeah.
There's only so many shapes you can draw ships from now. And so sooner or later you crisscross with something else. But it was a very fun one. And that was a hard ship because we had every artist in the art department throwing ideas out of the Shrike, trying to figure it out. There weren't enough notes to grab onto an idea. And Terry would send over, goes, it needs to be scary, it needs to be scarier. And at one point he threw out spider. And I'm going, shoot, those are the notes we had for the scimitar, spider. And so that one kind of was the final note, and we were running out of time. And I don't know if it was a flip the coin. We got to pick one of these 18 ships we have in here, and that one won by coin toss or what. But
that's my theory about what happened with the Borg, is that they eventually went, "Oh, cube."
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad you liked that one. That was a lot of fun.
Tobes.
This has already been in Richard's list, but it's the USS Defiant class. Again, it was just the impact on the show. Loved it. I loved its cameo in First Contact. If the Constitution or Enterprises are the heavy cruisers, then the Defiant is like the destroyer or the gunboat.
The runabout on steroids.
Yeah, basically kicks ass, and I've always liked it. It's unusual, I think, in that how the design of it is, and that it's essentially just the dish with the nacelles on the side, and like a little bit of a beak at the front. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's kind of Star Trek's Millennium Falcon to me. That's kind of how I view it.
There you go.
John.
Yeah, mine was the original series Enterprise. Always a dark secret fan of that ship. Just the coolest ship in the world. And you just see the beautiful fan films made, so you can actually see it outside of the original series world. But what a beautiful design. That Jeffries, what a guy. So amazing ship.
What was it like to work on that, sort of reimagining it?
Oh, for it was Discovery. We did that on that iteration. That was, my friend Scott Schneider and I were tasked to do that. He was an original model maker, physical model maker turned CG. And as we were talking earlier with the CG guys, if you get a CG modeler that has a physical model background, that translates, I think, in a different way than a guy that's all CG, because they have that sense of weight and gravity and stuff. But we were tasked to make an Enterprise that was just prior to the Jeffries Enterprise. And we spent, I think, 7 or 8 months on that ship. And we made it where it was a matter of removing things, a retrofit, and it would become the Jeffries ship. And that's how we designed it, and it went through the process. And we broke our own rules because we got very attached to it, which you should never do. And so we got approved, it went away. It looked exactly like what it needed to do with the proper homage to Jeffries, and it would have worked just seamlessly to do that transition. And then when we watch Discovery and it airs, it flies by, and Scott calls me up and goes, "Were those nacelle struts angled?" And I go, "I think so." And we didn't have the capability to watch it back because we forgot we're a matter of stair steps. So we do a part and it goes on to somebody else. And somewhere after it left us, it went through a different design phase and nobody knew about it. And so when we saw it on the screen, we thought, wait a minute, that takes away. And so, like I said, we got very emotionally attached to that. And Todd Chernowski calls us up and he goes, "Remember, guys, don't get emotionally attached to that." I was like, "You're right." So that was the end of it. But that was the process. It was to be as close to the Jeffries ship as possible so we could transition into it.
I mean, that's one for the nitpickers, though, isn't it? The real shit nerds, like, oh, the nacelles are like 5 degrees out or something,
Mm-hmm. Well, it was just changing the timeline is what that did. 'Cause,
it's nearer the refit, really.
Yeah, and so they jumped Jeffries and went to the refit. But as far as the architectural timeline goes, but it's all good. It looks beautiful. I like the Strange New World ship, so it looks beautiful.
Number 3. This is where I have to be not too effusive. My number 3 is the Enterprise E, the Sovereign class.
Don't worry, Rich. The Enterprise E is at my number 2. So all the love is coming your way, John.
This is what's been so rewarding for me in terms of how you've described how you think about it and your tying in with music is the opening shots are lovely and against the nebula, but it is that moment when they enter the fray, the battle with the Borg cube, and you have the Defiant, and you have Adam Scott, as we now know, is on the helm, and he says the line, and this is the thing, there's another ship coming in, sir, it's the Enterprise, and then it sweeps in front, and you get the Jerry Goldsmith Next Gen theme, and I was like, excuse this, they've fucking done it. It's another, and that very quickly, as much as I love the D, I love the E. It's streamlined, it's beautiful. I love the nacelle design. It's my favorite nacelle design with the red sort of triangles and the way it stretches back and it sweeps, but without going too sleek. And I really thought that because I'm not a huge fan of the Voyager. I really thought I would struggle to like a ship which incorporated the saucer section more into the secondary hull. But this is just gorgeous, and it was beautifully rendered by ILM, and this is what's so wonderful about having you on here is that I get to tell you how brilliant a ship it was, and it just transformed First Contact. It's one of the reasons for me that First Contact is so great, because you need that ship to be your Enterprise. It has to work. It has to work with the Goldsmith score, and like the shots when it passes the moon, when they're inside the with Cochrane and Riker, and it's just an incredible ship. So I promise I won't embarrass you anymore, but it was
well, very kind of you, thanks.
No, it's a wonderful piece of work, and
but it was a model as well, right, John? It wasn't in the other two films. It was all CG, but for this one specifically, there was a model.
Yeah, it's the last Enterprise model built for a movie, actually. So, but it was incorporated. John Goodson was kind of the lead in the model shop with Bill George and the gang, and then John Knoll was the kind of the CG guy behind it. So they worked in tandem and stuff. And for a lot of stuff, you couldn't get close to the model on for clarity. You know, it was a big model, it was an 11-foot model. But, you know, when you get in really super tight, you almost needed to transition to a CG model so you get that.
It's in your garage, right?
I wish it was in my garage, but no.
No, it was sold in 2006 for $130,000.
Yeah, that was a very big learning curve. It was a very big education, the Enterprise E, because when Herman came in and said that we needed that, it was just before holiday, Christmas or Thanksgiving, I can't remember. But he goes, oh, by the way, we need some sketches of a new Enterprise. Wow, that's fun. And then I go home and I got all panicky and ill.
I'm not surprised.
Thinking about it. But I started drawing it along the lines of the D. And Herman saw them. He goes, you know, you don't have to be compact anymore. The D was designed for TV format. Like, oh my gosh, I never knew that it was formatted to fit on a TV screen
so
in
square.
The 80s. Mm. And he goes, you can go back, you can do whatever you want. But you don't feel confined to keep it compact. And the E needed that gracefulness. And the Excelsior was the core inspiration behind the E. And then, and I think I'd mentioned this one before, but when we were watching Star Trek II in the theater, I'm going to shoot one more blast in the neck and the saucer's going to blow off. And so when they said this is a battleship, all those things that I thought were maybe easy targets for an enemy to wipe out your ship, that's why there's no neck. And so it was more sleek in battle design. But
I do remember thinking that, oh, that saucer's not separating from that ship.
No, you might lose a strut, but not that. but you know, when you look at these things, it's a very big collaboration that comes together with a ship, and so I kind of get the credit for the artwork on it. But there were so many people behind that. Mike and Denise were behind me, and I'd ask them questions. Rick Sternbach, I'd ask him stuff. Doug Drexler. So all these people coming up. Then I'd go meet with the ILM guys. I made a study model, and we took it up there. And the struts didn't work. They ferried right out of the hull, and it didn't work. So Bill George goes, I think we should make a flat and then an angle. That way the taper worked. And so it was a big, gigantic mixture of all of us coming together to make this ship, with Herman as the leader, and Ron Moore, one of the writers, would ask him questions, and he would put input in, and then Brannon would, and Braga would. It was really a cool, unique ship to work on. based on the information that we all got to do this thing together. And
Gorgeous work. Gorgeous.
Really, really fun thing to do. And also the cameraman, I forgot to mention that. Being on the model set with the cameraman, you'd listen to their comments, and certain models would go, I hate shooting this model because there's no way to film it but one way because it looks frumpy or it's out of balance and stuff. So I took that into heart too. And I thought, okay, I'm going to make this. I want to make it where the cameramen are happy and they can pick an angle any way they want. So another collaboration with those guys thrown in there. And then, of course, the nods to Jeffries with the little triangles under the saucer. And so it was fun. Very, very fun project.
Excellent. So, Ian, you're number 3.
Oh, you know what? We're going to start getting to ties. So I'm not going to go on in great detail because there's so many ships left. So my number 3 tie, I would say, is the Reliant with the Defiant.
Oh, interesting.
Those are my number 3.
Okay.
Excellent.
We've addressed the ships. I just thought the Defiant was exactly the ship that Deep Space Nine needed in the moment. It needed something militaristic that felt gritty and kind of real like the rest of the show, but was a ship unto itself that had power and got the crew somewhere when they needed to be. It could zip in and out, but it also could be a formidable ship when it needed to be dressed that way. So, and I thought they made really good use of it within the show. They didn't overdo it. The show didn't become, instead of Deep Space Nine, it didn't become, Star Trek Defiant. I thought they used it just enough, particularly during the war arc, obviously, to have it serve its purpose the way it was supposed to. And then there's just, Khan, Reliant, come on, how cool. So, there you go.
Another good explosion.
And another good explosion.
And doesn't it still hold the Guinness World Record for the slowest exposure? No, it does. That explosion is something like a millisecond, and it lasts 30 odd seconds on screen. It was the highest number of exposures. Anyway, little factoid. Toby.
My number 3. So I understand the love for the Klingon bird of prey, but my favourite Klingon ship is the Katinga that's in the motion picture, or it's basically the D7 from the original series. That's my definitive Klingon ship, probably because of my love for the original series. I've always seen that particular Katinga or D7, whichever one you want to say, essentially the same thing essentially. And I think actually the Katinga was based on the Phase 2 Klingon ship which they had created, but I had the Dinky toy which fired like the pellets out the front, so
I had the Enterprise for that.
I had the Enterprise as well, but I still got it somewhere. I was trying to look for it the other day, but I think it's somewhere in a box up in the loft. But yeah, I just love it.
Cool. So John, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is it's going back to the original show. The Tholian ship was a wickedly cool, and it scared me as a kid when it was making the web. I was still at that very easily frightened age, and to see that ship getting toned in, and the aliens were horribly with that funky 1960s effect around them with the heads moving around. That ship was so stinking cool. And I actually got to see the model. I go, is that it? It's a block of wood with some foil on it, basically. But on the screen, it was such a wickedly cool ship. And I think that was a Hua Chang ship. I hope my memory's serving me right. But I think Hua Chang did that. I don't know if Jeffries did. It'd be one of the two guys. But that Hua Chang, what a designer. He did the work with the Romulan ship, the original ship. And so I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure he did that one as well. But that was my number 3.
Excellent. Well, my number 2 we've already brought up, and it's my only non-Starfleet ship, which is the Romulan warbird, the
Derricks.
Someone's going to have to find out how to say that properly. We're going to get slaughtered for not being able to say that. But for the reason Toby gave, there are lots of gorgeous ships, but I'd never really seen an alien design which had the same impact on me as the Enterprise or the Reliant. And I just, exactly as you said, Toby, in the neutral zone when it dematerialized and you see it, I just remember thinking, wow, it was just gorgeous. And there was something about that design, and I've never really been able to put my finger on exactly what it is, but every time it's on screen, I'm like, and we didn't see it enough.
Mm-hmm.
I was always like, it was never used enough. I just felt
less is more sometimes, which may give you that impetus for choosing it, actually.
Yeah, I don't ever want to see a model. You know what you just said about the Tholian one? I don't ever want to see the model. Because I don't think, when they show you,
it'll ruin the magic.
Yeah, because when you like go to one of the auctions or something, or Adam Savage is on YouTube talking about a thing, and you're looking at it, and they show you the close-up, you go, I don't want to see that. That's just marker pen. Don't show me that. Or this Stockholm with like, and they was going, look, this is just held on by. But I'm like, no, stop it. It's a spaceship. So, but yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I think that's the defining criteria for my top 3. Mm-hmm. Love the Galaxy class, but my top 3 ships are all beautiful ships, and that matters. Because in the end, once we get to my number 1 choice, even though my co-presenters have heard me wax orgasmic about it before, that really, for me, that's the distinction between Star Trek and something like Star Wars. I do like the aesthetic of Star Wars, but it's Greeblies everywhere. It's all meant to be used, and yes, the Falcon looks great, and yes, the X-Wings look great, and they're iconic. And the ships in Star Trek, when they nail that combination of excitement and beauty, that's where the sweet spot is for me.
And it had a cool theme too.
It did have a cool theme. It did have a cool theme as well. Excellent.
The architecture is just very pleasing, I think.
Yeah, it's the shape. It's
just the way that it looks, aesthetically.
Yeah.
Ian.
Well, my next band is going to be called Wax Orgasmic. I just love that phrase. We're the Wax Orgasmic, and we're coming your way.
Oh, no.
Oh, I didn't even mean that.
I've got to go.
Wait a second. All right, but we're going with the 3-way tie for number 2.
Cool.
Enterprise D, Enterprise E, and the Borg Cube. And we've talked about the D and the E. I think the Borg Cube...
You are cheating on this list.
What?
You got 3 things in the second spot.
You heartless bastard. Shut up.
My number 1 is every ship that's ever appeared in Star Trek.
Hey, I originally had 5.
Outrageous, Ian.
People at home, you can't see this, but my middle finger is up. All right. Anyway, we've talked about the Enterprise D and E. Gorgeous ships. Great to see them again in recent days. All of it. But the Borg Cube, I do want to focus on for a second. We talked about it, earlier during our Borg conversation. But the simplicity of this cube creating fear, the way it was filmed, the color of it, the weaponry that we saw on screen. Sometimes less is more. And I just thought the Borg Cube creeped me out a little bit and just did the job. This big black box, and I've seen it lit green, obviously, which is also cool. But I just, even seeing it on the big screen, it looked even better than it did on the small screen, as it should, obviously. But I thought what they did with the TV show was fabulous, and I thought what they did when we saw it in the movies was even better. So, oddly enough, I couldn't believe it when I knocked out my 6 or 7 choices for tie at number 2.
Shit or get off the pot, mate. Come on.
And whittled it down to 3 for Toby. That the Borg Cube stayed.
John, I've got a Borg question for you. What was the process like where basically they go, it works, but where you go, yeah, we've had the cube, then when they blow up the cube, a sphere is going to come out. It's like, I'm already like, when was the decision made? Yeah, we're going to drop that and go round.
It's a very interesting story, that sphere. We got it in the note, in the little beat sheet, and it says, and then a sphere ejects out of the cube. And I'm going, oh no, not a sphere, any other shape but a sphere. Because you had the Death Star, you had the Starman ship. Yeah. I don't know how many other sphere ships there were. And I had just picked up this great big book, the Star Wars Chronicle book. Big giant picture of the Death Star in it. And I won't say the producer's name, but I went over to one of the producers, not one that you would think of, and I presented that book. And I go, maybe there might be another shape we might want to use, because the sphere is pretty popular sci-fi shape. Maybe anything else, one of those 18-sided dice, anything like that. And he goes, why do you say that? And I opened that book. I showed him the Death Star. He's looking at it, and he goes, no one will remember that. And I went, wow. And he goes, no, make it a sphere. And so I took my book and I told everyone in the art department, we wanted to make T-shirts that said that, but we didn't want to get fired. But that was how the sphere came to be.
Wow.
And it was a challenge because you don't want it to look like the Death Star.
It doesn't.
That was the design ethic.
Mission
of
accomplished.
the
It does
cube.
not.
And so we're doing it, and John Goodson was building it up at ILM, and they gave a lot of tours. And he wound up putting a bucket out. And he goes, anyone that asked me, because they were doing Phantom Menace at the time, or getting close to do it. And
Which has a ship with a sphere in the middle.
yeah, and so everyone that would come through on a tour would go, oh, is that the new Death Star? Is that the new Death Star? So we put a bucket out, so every time someone asked it, they'd throw a dime or a penny in that bucket. And so, it did exactly what it was supposed to do in the movie, but oh boy, it was certainly a little Death Star, little baby Death Star. And so we even played with it a little bit more, so the Death Star has the big weapon circle. That's what there's a little one on there hidden under the framework just for fun. So
Oh, I'm going to have to go and check my 4K of contact. My number 2, we mentioned it's the Enterprise E. Phenomenal ship, beautiful. What I really liked about it is I think you could see the evolution of the Enterprise B to the C to the D. It was like little tweaks, and then the E was just completely different. I know it sort of shared inspiration from Voyager and the Excelsior 2. I can even see some of the refit in there as well. And I know that you used real world concepts as well. I was reading about the amphibious curved bottom of the PBY was like an influence. But yeah, I just think it completely wowed me. Rich is sort of waxed lyrical enough about it. But yeah, brilliant work.
And that piece of flash, what's your number 2, John?
Is it the Enterprise E?
it's the Enterprise refit that came in the motion picture, and
Andy Probert, right?
The mighty Andy Probert that was behind that, and like we were talking earlier, when it made its presence known on film, they saved everything for that opening in the space dock with them flying around, so you got every nuance of that ship in before it even heads to space. The lighting, the redesign, everything about that ship was so stinking gorgeous. And watching right after Star Wars, Star Wars had cool looking models, but they didn't seem real. I mean, they were sci-fi real, but you wouldn't expect to see something like that. But when you saw that Enterprise in the film, you believe that was an actual real full-size ship, the way they put it together and filmed it. Just a remarkable. Every inch of that ship is just an amazing reimagining of what Jeffries had done. So my hat's off to everybody involved with that.
Which brings me to my number 1, which is the Enterprise refit. Exactly that. And in our first episode, John, we did our favourite bits of Star Trek, and when I had to narrow it down to my number 1, if I had to have only one bit of Star Trek, it was the motion picture because of the influence it had on me, which is an unusual choice for people, but specifically the sequence you just described. I absolutely adore that sequence. And I will not say it all again, because if people listen to that episode, I got mocked enough by these lovely gentlemen looking at me right now for how much I loved it and fetishize it and think it's gorgeous. But I'm with Kirk. I'm like, no, Ilea, second. It's all, that thing is just gorgeous. And it is that thing. And you were saying about Trumbull and everyone working on it. And that's, I think, probably the biggest difference between the motion picture in terms of it feeling cinematic to what followed, even as good as they were, was there is weight to that ship. And it's like 2001 in a similar sort of way, that sense of there's the way it was shot, that sort of bridging of periods where we weren't quite as sophisticated. I know Dykstra worked on motion picture, but it's not quite as sophisticated yet as we got after Empire Strikes Back and then which carried over into Wrath of Khan. So it's that mixture of slightly older special effects with new special effects that meant they had to do it that way. Like the moment, like in The Lord of the Rings, when in the Fellowship of the Ring with the bigatures, and then you move to The Hobbit and it's all digital and it's not quite the same. Mm-hmm. The number of frames just to make it feel big, and that's one of those things which, as a viewer, most viewers will never really appreciate what's required to do that. And as you say, if you've got Greeblies, you can create sense of scale and use depth of field very, very,
right.
Well, not very easily, but more easily. But that thing with its sleek, and it's just wonderful.
And you nailed it on the head with cinematically, because they filmed it slow. It wasn't a ship in like a later show where it's going from A to B, and that's what you see. this side to that side.
Yeah.
Like the scene when Voyager finally disintegrates and the ship comes right at you and stops right at the camera.
With a lens flare. Oh,
Remarkable
yeah.
ship that thing is.
I completely agree. And still the best warp out.
Yeah.
Still, that I'm like, I was always want to go, well, where's all the twinkly green, multicolored rainbow lights? Where have they gone? I like the stretch and all the, but I like, a little bit of drama. Like it's a big deal, So yeah, that's my number one. The top three are all, I love them all, but this was a formative enterprise to me, a formative spaceship.
Which three ships have you chosen for number one, Ian?
My number one is no. It's a tie between the two enterprises. It's the original Enterprise and it's the refit. Come on, that's fair.
Same ship, kind of.
The refit. I am with you. I love the intro of Motion Picture. The ship is totally fetishized. It's absolutely the word for it, and deservedly so. I mean, we hadn't seen the ship in years. Here it is. She's a thing of beauty. We are in awe of it. And this is going to take us on our trek from the TV show into the movies. I thought absolutely, was the scene a little too long? Did I need 10 minutes of it?
Yes.
The Spaceball spoof part was, I'm sure, as much for
the Goldsmith.
Star Trek
John will back this up when he goes boom and you face it straight on. Oh.
Yeah, whatever. But the original Constitution class Enterprise, like I was talking when I was a kid, and the model was there, type of thing. I mean, I had that ship. What was the company that made the old ship models with the
AMC?
Not AMC.
Not
ATM? AMT models. I used to buy the AMT models, and I had the Enterprise one. The original ship is just an absolute thing of beauty. Everybody kind of has their holy grail. One of them was to see the ship model at the Smithsonian.
I've done that.
I got to do that. I saw it years ago when it wasn't in great shape, and then years later when they had restored it. And it was very exciting for me to, when I was editor at StarTrek.com, to follow that with the people at the museum and the Okudas and all the people who were involved in bringing that ship literally back to life.
I got a bit shamed when I was there because someone actually pointed out that the Apollo landing craft was over there, and I'm against the Enterprise going, oh!
Right. But you should not have been shamed because it was just as cool, and I bet you that ship inspired a lot of people who design. We always talk about the astronauts being inspired by Star Trek. I bet you a lot of the designers in the future from NASA, in the future from the 60s I'm referring to here, were absolutely inspired by the designs of people like Greg, and then later like you, John. I'm sure that there are kids out there who will be the next generation of ship designers working for whoever is doing the ships now, and they'll be influenced by your work and the work of Doug and everybody else from the shows and movies. So it all starts with the original ship for me.
Tobes.
Well, surprise, my favourite is the Enterprise refit, or the Enterprise A. Is
This is the boring end of the show.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love the original Enterprise, but it was made for TV. I think when you see it in Enterprises in a Mirror Darkly or DS9 Trials and Tribulations, it sort of looks a little bit better. But I just like the changes that they made for the refit. I like the fact that the neck was slightly different. The warp nacelles were thinner. They weren't round. The angled nacelle pylons rather than the straight up.
Yeah, John, when you said that, that's something I would automatically see. That's the primary differentiator for me. The struts on the Jeffries versus the swept back nacelle struts on the refit. Definitely the primary thing.
It's not just an iconic ship within Star Trek. I just think it's an iconic ship in the whole of sci-fi. It would probably be my pick if you were to ask me to name my top 7 all sci-fi starships.
Definitely for me. And John, yeah, no pressure, John. What's it going to be?
Well, I love that we all have gravitated to the motion picture because it's cinematic. But mine is the Klingon ship from the motion picture.
Ah,
and I go back between the refit and the Klingon ship just depending, it's a mood thing, I guess. But I think what was remarkable about that is, you watch the TV show, and when they're going to do the movie, somebody said, guys, it's going to be cinematic. Make it magic. Everything is going to be magic in this movie. So the reimagining of that ship with the detail, I think Stetson and his group started. Then when I went to Apogee to film, Grant McEwen and his guys went on it. Pat McClung did, like when they did the oversized nacelle, he built that giant model, and the detail just kept going until there was no more room to detail things. But when it does that flyover, those were the Apogee shots, and accompanied with the music. And it was not only did you get the sense of a fantastic reimagining of a classic ship, but when it goes to fire that torpedo and the bay lights up, and then this ball comes out with the streams of light shooting everywhere, it's like, wow, this is not going to end. It just keeps better and better and better. And then when it flees from V'ger and gets absorbed, it's got the rear torpedo launcher. That sequence, I often watch that, just the opening sequence, the motion picture, often. Like, I think I'm watching a motion picture today. And I don't know, that was a magical ship. Everything about it was so cool. Everything in the motion picture was cool. The Vulcan sleigh ship, or the lander ship that Spock's on. There was the space station. Everything was so cool. I can't think of the name of it. The one that gets absorbed by Voyager, the Federation.
Epsilon 9. Yeah.
Epsilon 9. And everything in that movie. It's just, you can't go wrong. There's something in that one for everybody. All the models were stored in North Hollywood, a place called Cantera, and any reason we could think of to go look at them. Hey, we need to go get some research. We go out to Cantera to all the boxes.
John, I've got a little short pop quiz for you, okay? Don't have to give long answers, just what your thoughts are off the top of your head, focusing specifically on you. What is, in your mind, the best ship you designed?
I would have to say it would be the Phoenix, for many reasons, because one, I'm from Phoenix. I got to draw Phoenix. I used to go to that Titan Missile Museum as a kid growing up, and for the encyclopedia, Doug and Greg, Gene, and everyone did a version for the encyclopedia because no one imagined would have to do it. And then when we found out it was going to be in that Titan Missile Museum, and it had to be based on a literally Titan missile down there, it's my favorite, just for so many reasons. One, I got to work on Star Trek, was number one. I got to work with all the guys I was a hero of. And that ship, that was it. So many reasons. It was the first time I got to work with ILM, have ILM make a model. Like they said, the Goldsmith music. It was actually Jerry's son that did the Phoenix theme.
Huh.
And so when it does its first ignite off into space, that was his son's work. But that's it, the Phoenix.
Which of your ships would you say is most popular with the fans?
Gee, I don't... not quite sure. Probably the E. I get a lot of notes on the E that they like that a lot. Some of the obscure Enterprise ships get a lot of people that write about, what was that weird ship that you did in that episode? And but mostly the E is what the folks write about the most.
And which of your work is most popular with your peers? Where you have people coming up to you saying, wow, I wish I had done that.
I don't think I've ever had that conversation. But Jim Martin and I, we're fans of each other. I loved his stuff, and he brought up the E once. He goes, "Oh, that's quite a feather to have in your cap." So, but that's about it.
And then my last pop quiz question for you: you have written books about, obviously the art of Star Trek by John Eaves. You have done Ships of the Line art as well. You've been involved with the online. What have you not done in the world of Star Trek design that you still want to do before it's all over?
Oh, gosh, what would I like to do? I don't really get to do a lot of, it's the Star Trek world's kind of gone more into kind of rule the world stories. I always liked the fact that it was based as exploration. I always wanted to design these strange places that the ships would go to, where the ships is just a little teeny dot, and you'd imagine these great, fantastic arrays of space like we've never seen it. I never got that opportunity, and I always wanted to do it. So Ships of the Line opens doors sometimes for that. So it's not necessarily a ship, but where the ship was going to go. And that's something I always wanted to do. And unless I do it myself, that door will probably never open up. So maybe inspired me to do that. I think I'll do that.
And then how cool is it? I know Disco and at least one or two other shows have had your name on the plaques, on the dedication plaques. How cool is that to literally be canon in Star Trek?
Well, I'm a fan at heart, and I got the lucky break to work on the shows. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's just, I get kind of nervous and scared about it. I go, other people should have their name on there besides me. So I don't know. I look at it like that's a little bit too much spotlight. The books are the same way when Titan did that Art of Book. And it's a little bit too much in the spotlight. But I love the fact they let me do the acknowledgement page at the end. And that's where I love it, where I can thank everybody. And they never give me enough pages to do it proper. But I don't know. As a fan, it's a weird feeling. I can't put it in words, but it's cool. But I don't know. I don't think I should be on all this stuff.
I think you've earned your place, though, John. I mean, you are.
Yeah.
If online information is correct, you are the longest serving person on Star Trek in terms of like staff. That's what I read. You've overtaken the Okudas.
I think we were tied for a while. Because I got on the JJ stuff. And sadly, there were strange rules in the beginning where no one from previous Star Trek could get on. So I got in because they ran out of art guys. They went on to other shows, and so they hid me in the transportation trailer to draw stuff. So no one even knew I was there except my boss. So that was it. But it was. I've heard that too, and it's. I hadn't thought about it like that. I'm just always very glad when they hire me, because I love the show. I love everything about it, and the crews are the magic. It's not necessarily the show, but who you work with. And what was fun, like meeting Ian and the guys over when Viacom had the big building over by the theater. My favorite was to go over and visit everybody in licensing, and Van Sitters and you and all the guys. It's fun because we all work on the same thing that we love. That was the best part about the whole show.
Well, the Enterprise E alone, as you've said yourself, is probably the one you get the most fan feedback on. That's an iconic ship. That will always be an iconic ship in Star Trek. So your place in the Star Trek pantheon, in the canon, is absolutely deserved. And I think that, frankly, it should be a plaque on that ship in the bridge. I'm not sure if it was done, but it definitely should be somewhere. But
yeah, they did 3 plaques, one for every movie. And so, Mike would change the main credits to who the writers were and stuff like that. But the art department was always the same crew. And that was a time when Star Trek was not a big money outing for the studio. So we would share, we were Deep Space Nine or Enterprise, and we would share the job day. Like, okay, half on the movie and half on the shows. So it was when JJ started that the big, gigantic, full-blown art department came together.
And then, John, what else are you working on these days? Are you still doing photography?
Yeah, not as much as I like. That was fun when we did the stuff and we got to do the Star Trek cosplay gals. They were a lot of fun, and actually none of them even knew what Star Trek was, which was even more fun. And so they would so wonderfully pose in 1960s style. But I'm doing the new Ships of the Line calendar piece right now as we speak. I'm doing some secret Star Trek stuff for a secret project that no one knows about.
Ooh, brilliant. Thank you so much, John, for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to talk to Ian and Toby and indulge the geekiness, but to have someone who's actually worked on it and has played a key role in the history of Star Trek and
impacted our geekiness.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, is a joy. So as ever, that's the end of this episode, and that's our thoughts, including expert thoughts on good ships. But what do you think? So if you want to contact us, email us, talk to us on socials, it's all included in the description. And please let us know what your top 7 favourite starships are. We assume they're all designed by John, but it's still nice to formalise that. And thank you so much, everyone. Thanks again to Ian and Toby, and especially to John for being here with us today. And see you soon beyond the final frontier.
Bye.
Peace, love, and logic, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast. with Rich Matthews, Ian Spelling and Toby Weidman. If you want to get in contact with us, you can email us on beyondffpod@gmail.com or check us out on social media. You can even join our Patreon at BFF Beyond the Final Frontier. Huge thanks go out to Alex Weidman for the brilliant original music. Please search Alex Weidman Composer on YouTube to hear the full fantastic theme and more. Also thanks goes to award-winning voiceover artist Cissy Jones for our excellent opening monologue. Find out more about her incredible work at cissyjones.com. And of course, last but not least, our brilliant artwork comes from the designer Russell Seal. Discover more of his work on behance.net/Russell Seal. Thanks again and see you next episode, Beyond the Final Frontier.